You know, sweetheart, funny how a smell can pull you right out of the present and drop you smack dab in the middle of a memory. Just this morning, I was trying to bake an apple pie for the church potluck, and that smell. Lord have mercy, it hit me like a freight train. Cinnamon, butter, warm apples, just like Mama used to make. And just like that, I was 17 again, barefoot, sitting on the front steps in a cotton dress, waiting for the screen door to creak open and hear Daddy's boots come down the path. Back in my day, we didn't have much, didn't have a pot to pee in, truth be told, but we had each other. And when Mama made pie, it meant something good was coming. Maybe company. Maybe a letter from my brother overseas. Or maybe, just maybe, something was about to change. I'll tell you what, that smell this morning didn't just remind me of pie. It brought back a night I haven't spoken of in nearly 60 years. A warm September evening in 1961. The sun was setting behind the cornfields, all golden and low, and I remember sitting at the dinner table in my Sunday dress, the blue one with the lace collar, not because it was Sunday, but because I was hoping to impress a certain someone. I didn't know it at the time, but that would be the night I'd make the first of many choices that shaped the rest of my life. Not big dramatic ones, not the kind you read about in books. No, just small choices, quiet ones, the kind you only understand much later, when you're sitting in your kitchen, gray-haired, looking out the window with a cup of tea that's gone cold. That night, I remember the crickets were singing, and the floorboards in our old house creaked just so. My daddy had that far-off look in his eye, the kind he'd get when he was worrying about money but didn't want us to know. Mama was humming something, "You Are My Sunshine," I think, while slicing that pie with her knuckles still dusted in flour. And I was thinking about him. A boy with calloused hands and a dimple on his left cheek. He wasn't mine yet. Not then. But I'd made up my mind. You young folks wouldn't understand how loud the world was back then, not with noise, but with silence. With everything we didn't say and everything we hoped would come to be. That night, I learned that happiness ain't something loud either. It's quiet. It slips in on the smell of pie, or the feel of a worn quilt, or the way someone says your name when they're not trying to be clever. I suppose what I'm trying to say is, there's a story I've kept to myself for many, many years. Maybe too long. But lately, I've been feeling this tug in my chest, like the Lord's telling me it's time to open the lid on some of these old memories. Not because they're grand or mighty, but because they're real. They mattered. And maybe, just maybe, there's someone out there who needs to hear 'em. So, if you've got a minute, come sit a while. Let me tell you what that pie reminded me of, and how a quiet September evening set in motion a whole lifetime of lessons. But I'll warn you, sugar, this ain't just a story about pie. It's a story about choices, about love, about what it really means to be happy. And by the end of it, I want you to ask yourself one thing. Are you really living, or are you just waiting for the pie to cool? Back when I was a little girl, life moved slower, like honey on a cold morning. I grew up just outside a town you wouldn't find on most maps anymore, somewhere in the flatlands of Ohio, where the cornfields stretched so far you'd swear the earth just ran out. We had a white clapboard house with a tin roof that sang when the rain came down, and a wraparound porch where Mama did her string beans, and I used to play with dolls made out of corn husks. We didn't have much, but Lord, we had what counted. Warm meals, calloused hands, and a rhythm to life that felt almost holy. Every morning, the rooster hollered just before Daddy's boots hit the floor. Mama's skillet hissed like it had secrets, and we'd sit down to eggs, biscuits, and black coffee that'd grow hair on your chest, Daddy said. I'd wrap my legs around the wooden chair rung and listen as they talked in that low, serious tone about the crops, about prices, about whether the Miller boy had finally come home from Korea. I was just a skinny little thing with freckles and braids, always trailing behind my big brother, who thought I was more nuisance than sister. I didn't mind. I liked being invisible sometimes. It let me dream. I'd sit under the apple tree with my nose in a book, imagining far-off places and city lights, thinking maybe one day I'd live in a house with real curtains and maybe even a piano, even though I didn't know how to play. You know, back then, a girl's life was pretty much set before she had her first real say. You were expected to marry young, raise your babies, keep a clean house, and never talk back too loud. But even as a girl, I had this little ember burning inside, a whisper that said, "There's more for you, Joe. Don't be afraid to want it." Still, I was a good girl. Sunday school, chores, and yes ma'am, no sir, thank you kindly. My mama was the strongest woman I ever knew. She never raised her voice, but she could slice your soul clean with a look. She believed in hard work, clean hands, and not complaining unless you were bleeding. You got 2 legs and a mind, she used to say. Don't waste either one. And I believed her. I thought the world made sense, that kindness would always be returned, that prayers were always heard, and that nothing truly bad could happen if you just did what was right. I didn't know yet that sometimes life takes and takes without explanation. But I also didn't know how strong I'd become when it did. We had a neighbor, Miss Lorraine, who'd come by with jars of canned peaches and a laugh that rattled the porch windows. She wore bright scarves and smelled like rosewater. I thought she was the fanciest woman alive. She told me once, sitting on our steps with her knees knocking together, that dreams were like fireflies. You had to catch 'em before they disappeared. And I never forgot that. Even when I grew up and life got messy and hard, I still kept that image in my mind of dreams, floating and glowing, just waiting to be held. I suppose I was innocent back then. I didn't understand war or sorrow or betrayal. I believed that love lasted and good people always came back home. I thought if I just smiled big enough and helped Mama in the kitchen, maybe everything would stay just as it was. But life don't stay still for no one. And sometimes the smallest choices, the ones you don't even realize you're making, shape your whole world. You see, I was just a girl with big eyes and bigger hopes. I didn't have much, but I had heart. And sometimes, sugar, that's all you need to get started. So when I tell you where my rules for a happy life came from, I don't mean they came down from the heavens like thunder. No, they came from sitting in the dust, watching Mama hang laundry. From hearing Daddy say grace with a crack in his voice. From knowing that no matter how little we had, we always shared it. Now let me ask you something, sweetheart. When's the last time you sat still long enough to listen to your own memories? I don't mean pictures on a phone. I mean the ones that live in your bones. Are you letting them fade, or are you still chasing fireflies? I remember the day clear as glass, though it was over 60 years ago now. The air was thick with the smell of cut grass and diesel from Daddy's tractor. I was standing out by the clothesline, holding a basket of damp laundry against my hip, the sun beating down on the back of my neck. It was just another Tuesday in July, or so I thought. But you never do see the big things coming, not the ones that matter most. They sneak up quiet, like a summer breeze that don't rattle the trees, but somehow shifts everything inside you. That's when I saw him. He wasn't supposed to be there, just a stranger walking down the dirt road in a shirt rolled up at the sleeves and a pack slung over his shoulder. I figured maybe he was passing through, one of those boys looking for work, the kind that came around when the harvest got close. But there was something about the way he walked, not in a hurry, but like he belonged to the world, like he wasn't afraid of it. And when he got closer, he tipped his hat at me, not with a smirk like most boys would, but with a kind of gentle respect that made my hands stop moving. "Afternoon, ma'am," he said, though I couldn't have been more than 17. His voice was warm, low, touched with the south. Not thick, but just enough to make the word ma'am sound like honey. I don't know why, but my heart gave this little jump, like a bird caught mid-flight. Now, I'd never been one to get silly over boys. I had chores to tend, a family that needed help, dreams that didn't involve heartbreak. But something in me stirred that day, not loud, not wild, just a quiet ache, like someone had opened a window in a room I didn't know was stuffy. His name was Eli. Mama let him work for a few days in exchange for meals and a clean bed in the barn. Said it was the Christian thing to do. I think she saw something in his eyes too. Not danger, not mischief, just sorrow. The kind of sorrow you don't ask about, but you feel when he says thank you and means it all the way down to his boots. We didn't talk much at first. Just nods across the yard, stolen glances when I handed him lemonade. But each time our eyes met, something inside me felt known, like he'd seen the part of me no one else had ever looked at long enough to recognize. I didn't even know what that part was yet, but he made me feel like I mattered, not as someone's daughter or sister or helper, just me. I remember sitting on the back steps one evening, dusk settling over the fields like a hush, and Eli walked up slow, held out a folded piece of paper. Said he liked to write sometimes, helped him think. I opened it after he walked away. Just a few lines of a poem, not perfect, not polished, but it was about me. Not the girl with freckles or chores or braids, but the me that dreamed under the apple tree, the one who chased fireflies. I didn't sleep much that night. I laid awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering what to do with this new feeling that had snuck into my chest. I didn't have a word for it yet, wasn't sure if it was love, or fate, or just the thrill of being seen. But it changed me. And once your heart knows it can feel like that, well, it never quite goes back to being quiet. You see, I didn't know it then, but Eli wasn't just passing through. He was the reason I'd start listening to that whisper I told you about. The one that said, "There's more for you, Joe." Now, I ain't saying every stranger who walks up your road is a gift from heaven, but I'll say this. Sometimes the wind shifts, and when it does, you better not fight it. Let it move you, even if you don't know where you're going. Now let me ask you something, darling. When's the last time you let someone see you, really see you, without pretending or shrinking? What he's so afraid they'll find. Things started shifting not long after Eli showed up. At first it was all innocent, shared glances, kind smiles, little things that made my days feel just a bit brighter. But it wasn't long before Mama took notice. She never said much at first, just tightened her lips when she saw me talking to him by the barn or Logan at something he said. But I could feel it, that heaviness in the air, like a storm brewing somewhere out past the fields. Daddy stayed quiet, which in our house meant he was thinking. And when Daddy thought too long, trouble usually followed. I guess I should have known better. Folks in our town didn't take kindly to strangers hanging around too long, especially not ones who didn't have a last name anybody recognized, or a land to speak of, or roots in the church. Eli was kind, gentle, but he was also different. And in a place like ours, being different could be dangerous. I didn't see it then, didn't want to. I just knew that for the first time, someone made me feel like more than a shadow in my own life. The talk started with the neighbors. Miss Jeannie from 2 farms over told Mama she'd seen us walking too close down by the creek. Then the pastor's wife stopped by just to check in, but spent most of the time asking questions about the young man in the barn. Mama sat stone-faced, her apron bunched in her lap, nodding politely but saying nothing. When she finally did speak to me that night, it wasn't a yell or even a lecture. It was worse, disappointment. Quiet, deep, cold. "You don't know this boy," she said. "You don't know where he's from. You don't know what he wants." But I did know, or at least I thought I did. I knew how he looked at me like I mattered. I knew the way he listened when I spoke, like every word was worth something. And I knew that when he held my hand for the first time, my whole body went still, like the world had stopped moving, just long enough for me to realize what it meant to be chosen. But Mama didn't see that. And Daddy, well, Daddy didn't say a word. Just shook his head that Sunday morning and told Eli his help was no longer needed. That was it. No goodbye, no thanks, no nothing. Just the sound of the barn door closing and a truck engine humming down the road. I didn't cry, not where anyone could see. I just went to bed that night and stared at the ceiling like I had months before, but this time my chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped out all the soft parts of me and left just the ache. I wanted to scream, to run after him, to say no, I won't let you take this from me. But I didn't, because I was a good girl, and good girls didn't cause scenes. They didn't chase after boys. They stayed home. They obeyed. And yet, inside me, something cracked. Not broken, not yet, but cracked. I started questioning things I'd never dared to question before. My family, my faith, the path that had been laid out for me like railroad tracks. No one asked how I felt. No one asked if I missed him. Mama just handed me more work to do, and Daddy stayed out in the field till dark. The days moved on, but I didn't. You ever felt like the whole world kept turning, but your feet were stuck in the mud? I smiled when I was supposed to. I cleaned the kitchen, folded the linens, bowed my head at church. But inside, I was screaming. Not because of the boy, but because I didn't know who I was without the feeling he gave me. I felt ashamed for wanting more than what was offered. I felt scared that maybe Mama was right, and I didn't know him or myself. And I felt angry at them, at me, at God for giving me something so sweet only to snatch it away. That was the first time I learned that some of the deepest pains don't leave scars where people can see them. Now let me ask you, Sugar. When someone took something from you, something real, did you let em? Or did you fight for it, even if it meant standing all by yourself? There are moments in life that split you wide open. And no matter how many years pass, no matter how many hands you hold or children you rock to sleep, you never forget the sound it made when your world cracked in two. For me, it was a Sunday. The kind where the breeze was too still and the birds too quiet, like the whole world was holding its breath and didn't know why yet. We were sitting in church, me, Mama, Daddy. Same pew we'd always sat in since I was little. I wore a yellow dress that didn't feel like mine. And I remember the way the wood of the pew dug into the back of my legs, like it was trying to keep me grounded. Preacher was reading from Psalms, but my mind wasn't in the Lord's house. It was in the memory of a hand I hadn't held in weeks, a boy I hadn't seen since Daddy sent him packing. Then I heard the door. It creaked open behind us, late. I turned, and there he was, Eli. He walked in, hat in hand, shirt pressed, but there was something different in his face. Not fear, not anger, just this hollowness, like he already knew he didn't belong. I didn't know what to do. My heart slammed against my chest so hard I thought Mama might hear it. He didn't look at me, just sat in the back row alone. After service, I broke the rules. I ran. I followed him out behind the old parsonage, breathless, dizzy, like I was chasing my own heartbeat. "What are you doing here?" I asked, and he looked at me with eyes so tired I felt ashamed for a skin. He pulled a crumpled letter from his pocket and handed it to me. Said it came from home. His mama was sick, real sick. Said he was heading back down south in the morning. Didn't know if he'd ever be back. I didn't cry then. Not even when he said, "I came to say goodbye." Not even when he reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear like he always used to, real soft. But when he kissed me just once, slow and sure, like a promise he couldn't keep, I felt time stop. I swear the wind held still. The cicadas went quiet. And in my chest, I heard it tick, tick, and then nothing. Just silence. I watched him walk away. Didn't chase him this time. Didn't scream. Just stood there in that yellow dress, letting the sun set without a skin it to wait. And when I went home, I folded the letter into my Bible. And I never told a soul. Not Mama. Not Daddy. Not even myself. For a long, long while. But that was the day I learned. Love don't always stay. Sometimes it shows up, changes you, and leaves before you've even figured out what to call it. I never saw Eli again. Weeks turned into months. Seasons changed. I got older, quieter. People stopped to scan about him. Mama never mentioned his name. And I started pretending I was fine, that I'd moved on, that I hadn't spent every evening checking the road from the porch, hoping for a dusty old truck to come rolling back. But inside, part of me stayed in that moment. Frozen, cracked, different. I didn't stop living, but I never quite lived the same. Now listen here, baby. Have you ever lost something before you even had the chance to fight for it? And if you had that moment back, just one, would you say what you never dared to say the first time? After Eli left, the days got real quiet. Not peaceful quiet, not the kind that fills your soul. It was the kind that makes your bones ache. Like the house itself noticed he was gone. Like the wind blew colder through the kitchen window, even in August. Life didn't stop, oh no. The cows still needed feeding, Mama still boiled coffee at 6 sharp, and the church bells still rang on Sunday. But inside me, something had shifted. Like the gears that used to turn easy, suddenly started grinding with every breath. I remember waking up early, sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor, trying to remember what it felt like to be 17 before I knew what loss tasted like. And I couldn't. It was like trying to remember a dream that vanished the second your eyes opened. I went through the motions, helped Mama with the canning, folded linens till my fingers went numb, read my Bible with eyes that didn't absorb a single word. But I didn't feel, not joy, not anger, just stillness. That hollow kind of stillness where even the birds sound far away. You know, nobody talks about the time after. Everyone wants the big story, the kiss, the goodbye, the heartbreak. But no one ever asks, what came next? I'll tell you what came next. Nothing. Not right away. No grand realizations, no brave decisions. Just weeks of wearing a mask that looked a whole lot like me, the good daughter, the quiet girl, the one who moved on. But inside, I was tired. Not the kind of tired a nap fixes. The kind that seeps into your spirit and whispers, maybe this is all there is. My faith, well, it didn't leave me, but it sure got quiet. I stopped praying for things. Stopped to skin. I figured maybe God was busy with folks who needed him more. I didn't blame him, but I didn't reach for him either. I just existed. There were boys after Eli. Nice enough. Sons of farmers. One even brought me wildflowers in a mason jar. But no one looked at me like I was made of stories. No one listened like they were waiting for me to reveal a secret. And I didn't try. I didn't trust myself to open the door again, not when I knew how cold it could feel when it slammed shut. I think the hardest part wasn't losing him. It was losing me. The version of me that believed. That girl under the apple tree, with her heart wide open and her pockets full of someday. She didn't die, exactly. But she got real quiet. I kept living, sure. I laughed again. Went to picnics, sang hymns, but there was a space in me that stayed empty, not in a tragic way, just in a real way. Like a room in an old house that no one goes into anymore, but you still dust it, just in case. Now let me tell you something plain, sweetheart, some things don't heal. Not all the way. And maybe they shouldn't. Maybe the ache reminds us we once dared to feel something real. So I kept breathing. That's all. No big comeback. No magic. Just breathing one slow, stubborn breath at a time. Now you tell me, what part of you have you buried so deep you've convinced yourself it never mattered? And what would happen if you let it breathe again? It happened on a Tuesday. Funny how life don't wait for perfect timing. It just sneaks up on you in the middle of the plainest day. I was hanging laundry on the line, same as always. The sun was out, but not too hot. The sheets flapped soft in the breeze, and somewhere down the road a tractor was humming. It wasn't a big moment. No flash of light. No voice from the heavens. Just a sound, small, soft, but real. It was a baby crying. At first I thought I was hearing things, but then I turned and saw her, Missy Jean, the widow from 2 farms down, struggling down the road with a basket in one hand and her baby on her hip, red-faced and hollering. I don't know what made me move. Maybe instinct, maybe kindness, maybe just the ache of silence finally reaching its limit. But I dropped my clothespins and walked toward her without a second thought. "Let me take her," I said, holding out my arms. She looked surprised. I suppose I hadn't said more than 2 words to her since Easter, but she handed that little one over like it was the most natural thing in the world. And Lord, when I cradled that warm, fussing bundle against my chest, something cracked open inside me. Not like before. Not pain. This time it felt like breathing for the first time in a long, long while. That baby, her name was Annie, curled her little fingers into the collar of my dress, and just like that, she stopped crying. And I almost started. Missy Jean and I sat on the porch for a while after that. Talked about nothing important. Peach jam, garden pests, the way her back ached something awful these days. But in that moment, I remembered what it felt like to belong in someone's day again. Not just existing on the edges, but in it. And after she left, after Annie's soft head wasn't on my shoulder anymore, I walked inside, poured myself a cup of tea, and stared out the window. And I thought, maybe I'm not finished yet. It didn't happen overnight. I didn't leap into a new life or start writing poetry on the backs of seed catalogs. But I started saying yes more often. Yes to helping out with the church fake sale. Yes to sitting with the neighbors' kids when their mama got sick. Yes to teaching the little girls how to sew a straight line, even when I hadn't threaded a needle in years. And each yes was a thread pulling me back together. I still missed him. That never really went away. But for the first time, I wasn't sitting in the dark with it. I was moving through the day with a softness in my chest again, a space that didn't feel so empty anymore. A place where a light could get in. Hope don't always come riding in on a white horse, sugar. Sometimes it shows up in a baby's cry, or a neighbor's knock, or the smell of bread rising in the oven. It don't shout. It whispers. And if you're quiet long enough, if you've sat with yourself through enough hard nights, you just might hear it. And when you do, you better believe it's worth listening to. Now let me ask you something, darling. What quiet thing has been calling to you, soft, steady, that you've been ignoring 'cause you didn't think you deserved another try? What if that whisper is your second chance? It wasn't a grand moment. Not like in the movies where everything freezes and you make a big, bold declaration. It wasn't that. No, it was something quieter. More like a door opening in your chest that you didn't know was there until it swung wide. I remember it was a Sunday again. I had been sitting on the porch, not thinking about anything in particular, just watching the sun move across the sky. It felt like I was waiting for something, but I didn't know what. You know, sometimes life gives you all the time in the world, but you don't know what to do with it. And I was tired of waiting. Tired of thinking I wasn't enough, or that the past was gonna keep me locked in its grip forever. I picked up my mother's old Bible, the one she gave me when I was a girl. It still had the old pressed flowers between the pages, faded and dry. I flipped through it, not really looking for anything, but I kept turning the pages until I came to the part where she'd written my name in the front. "Joe, I hope you find peace," it said in her careful script. I closed it, held it against my chest, and I realized something. I had been carrying that book around with me my whole life, but not for the reasons I thought. It wasn't just a symbol of Mama's love or her teachings. It was a reminder of what I hadn't done, what I hadn't let myself do. I hadn't forgiven myself. The guilt I carried all these years, it wasn't because I let Eli go or because I didn't fight harder for him. It was because I had never forgiven myself for not living, for not choosing to pick up the pieces and move on when life gave me another chance. And I realized that if I was ever going to be whole again, I had to make the choice. Not the choice to forget, that wouldn't be honest, but the choice to live despite it all. To stop letting my past define me and to start making new memories, not chained to the ones that had already broken. I stood up from the porch, walked inside, and I knew exactly what I had to do. I went to the closet and found the box. The one I kept hidden behind everything else. The one filled with letters from Eli, postcards from places we never went, the picture he'd drawn for me on a scrap of paper that I had kept folded in my drawer for decades. I had kept all those things close, but far enough away that I could pretend they didn't matter. I thought if I never looked at them, they couldn't hurt me, but they had been a weight around my neck for too long. So I made a decision. I took the box outside and opened it up. One by one, I took out the letters, the pictures, the things I had kept in secret for so long, and I let them go. I didn't burn them, didn't tear them apart. No, I just let them fall. I let the wind carry them, let the rain wash them away. And for the first time in so many years, I felt light. Not perfect, not whole, but lighter. Like something that had held me for so long finally released its grip. I had been living in the shadows of my memories, but that day I decided to step into the light. Not for anyone else, not for some grand reason, but for me. For the girl who once believed in dreams, in love, in the possibility of more. I don't know if I'll ever stop missing him. I don't know if I'll ever stop wondering what would have happened if I'd made different choices. But I know this. I chose to keep going. To stop measuring my life by what was lost and start living by what I still had. And that choice, right there, was the one that saved me. So, you see, sweetheart, sometimes you have to let go of what you thought was yours. Sometimes you have to forgive yourself for not being who you wanted to be. And sometimes the hardest thing to do is simply say, "I'm ready now." Now let me ask you, what have you been holding onto that's weighing you down, but you're too afraid to let go of? And what would happen if you decided, just for once, that you're worthy of something better? I've been thinking a lot lately. About time. About the way things slip through your fingers without you even knowing it. When you're young, you think there's all the time in the world. You think you can just wait for things to change. Wait for the right moment. Wait for the right person. Wait until you're sure. But that's the problem, isn't it? You wait so long that you don't notice the world passing you by. I spent years doing that. Waiting for Eli to come back. Waiting for the pain to go away. Waiting for life to hand me a new dream. But what I learned the hard way is that life doesn't wait for you. It doesn't stop because you're not ready or because you're scared. It keeps moving. It's just like the seasons, they don't stop because it's winter and you wish for one more sunny day. No, they keep tuning, whether you're watching or not. I spent so many years holding on to things, clinging to memories like they were the only part of me that still mattered. I thought that if I held tight enough, I could preserve the past, stop it from disappearing. But the truth is, the past isn't meant to be held. It's meant to be remembered, to be cherished, but not chained. Not stuck in the corners of your heart like an old coat you refuse to give away. There's a verse in the Bible that says, "There's a time for everything, a season for every activity under the heavens." And I think that's true. But sometimes, the hardest part isn't fin in the time. It's fin in the courage to let go of what's no longer yours, of what's been gone for a long time. I spent too many years thinking the worst thing that could happen was losing. But I'll tell you now, the worst thing is not choosing. Not choosing to live when you're given the chance. Not choosing to love again when your heart's been broken. Not choosing to pick yourself up when life knocks you down. What I realized, as I sit here now with the years behind me, is that the most important choice I ever made was to keep going. To let the past be what it was and not let it define me. To stop waiting for a future that would fix everything and instead start building the life I wanted right where I was. I didn't find all the answers. I'm not some wise sage with all the secrets of the universe. But I can tell you this, happiness isn't something that just happens to you. It's something you decide to make, even when it feels like you're just treading water. And sometimes, that means letting go of old dreams to make room for new ones. Not every door you want to open will open. Not every person you love will stay. And that's okay. I don't hold on to the same dreams I had when I was 17. Those dreams were beautiful, and they taught me a lot. But I've learned that new dreams are just as beautiful, and sometimes they come in forms you never expected. They come in a baby's laugh, in a neighbor's kindness, in the quiet satisfaction of a day well lived. They come in forgiveness, not just for others, but for yourself too. If you take anything from this, I hope it's this. You don't need to wait for some grand moment to begin. You don't need to wait for life to become what you thought it should be. It's already here. You just have to choose to live it. So, maybe it's time for you too. Time to stop waiting for some perfect moment. Time to stop holding on to the parts of your life that are gone. Time to make a choice. To stop waiting for the perfect time to be happy, to love, to live. I'll tell you what, there's no better time than right now. Now, let me ask you this. What part of your life are you still waiting to happen? And what would it take for you to start living it right now? You know, when you've lived as long as I have, you start to see life as less of a straight line and more like a river. It winds, it turns, it moves slower in some places and faster in others. But it doesn't stop. No matter what happens, no matter how much we want it to, life keeps flowing. Sometimes I catch myself in the middle of a quiet moment, when the sun is setting just right, or when the wind blows through the trees in that way that feels like a memory, and I wonder, did it all really happen the way I remember it? Did it mean what I thought it meant? I'll tell you this, the past is a strange thing. It stays with you in pieces, like old photographs scattered around the house. You can hold them, look at them, smile at them, but you can't live in them. Not anymore. It's not where we belong. We belong here in the now, in the choices we make today. And that's why I'm sharing this with you. Not because my story is some grand tale of heartache and triumph. Not because I have all the answers, Lord knows I don't. But because I think, just maybe, there's something in it for you. Something that might help you with what you're going through right now. You see, we all have our own stories, our own heartaches. Some of us have lost love, some of us are still waiting for it, and some of us wonder if it's even possible anymore. But here's the thing, love, true love, it's not always the loudest thing in the room. Sometimes it's the quiet moments, the ones that sneak up on you when you're not looking, when you least expect it. And sometimes it doesn't come back in the way you imagine, but that doesn't mean it's gone. I'll be honest, I've wondered sometimes if Eli remembers me the way I remember him. I still think about him, every now and then. Maybe that's the funny thing about life. We move on, but part of us stays with the people who were once so important. And sometimes you get the sense that they feel the same way. Maybe they don't come back to you. But maybe, in the quiet places where time slows down, they're thinking of you too. And maybe, just maybe, it's the act of living that keeps that love alive. Not the past, not the memories, but the way we choose to keep going, to keep loving, even when it feels like the world's a little quieter than it was before. I think that's where the magic is. It's in the everyday, in the little things we do, the people we love, the way we choose to keep our hearts open, even when they've been broken. And that's what I want you to take with you. That love doesn't always have to return to be real. Sometimes it just changes form. Sometimes it stays with us in the way we live our lives, in the way we treat others, in the way we find peace again, even when we thought it was lost. Now, I have a question for you, Sugar. Do you believe that true love always has to come back? Or can it stay with us in ways we never expected, in moments we never saw coming? I'd love to know what you think. I'll leave you with this, though. Sometimes, I think he remembers. I do. And maybe that's enough. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helped you see something in yourself, in the world, that you hadn't noticed before. And no matter where life takes you next, I hope you always remember that you are the one who decides how your story ends.